Welcome to Amazing TV, and thanks for watching. His story is an inspiration to millions. It's about overcoming the odds of immense starvation, torture and violation. To go on, eventually live your dream and become what you always wanted to be, a recording artist in London's swinging 60s. How you doing?
Hello, Andy. Not late for mine. Likewise.
Okay, let's go and have a talk about your book.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
Rocky Road.
Thank you.
It's a lovely abode.
Well,
Okay.
it's a home.
Can you I'm here today to talk to the lovely Tony Rocco about his new book, Rocky Road. Now, when Tony became a pop star in the swinging 60s, his record company changed his age, meaning he couldn't talk about his dramatic wartime experiences under Japanese occupation during World War II. Now, Tony, how come it took you so long to bring out this book?
Exactly because of what you said. When they changed my age from 29 to 21, I had to wipe off 9 years of experience with the Japanese occupation to the reporters that talked to me, the press, saying that I was 21 and I didn't know anything about the past. So the years went by, and now that I've sort of been semi-retired and I've got time to think, I got down to writing the book, and my real age came out. So,
well, the thing that impressed me so much about the book really was the will to survive and to live your dream, and that's what really comes across. And there's so many powerful historical facts, and it's littered with name dropping with people you met in on your journey to become a pop star. If you could take us back when, to your grandfather, for example. Now we're going to go back to the Victorian era. Now, was he sort of, I gather he was a bit aristocratic? Or?
he was, yeah. He was related to Empress Eugenie in France, and she married Napoleon III and all that. But fast forward, he was an administrator in Borneo, and met Iban girl and the ethnic people of Borneo. Got married, and Mum was born, and her sister. And through his retirement, coming to England, gradually neglected the girls, and they were stuck at the convent. And in the meantime, Dad, who was in Ceylon, English, his father was the captain in the army for the Boer War. He retired and settled in Ceylon, and that's where Dad was born.
Okay.
Dad decided to be independent and decided to go to Singapore to look for work. When he was in Singapore, he saw an advert by His Royal Highness, the Brooke family, who were Rajas of Sarawak, wanting a man to start up communications and telegraphy in Kuching.
Sure. What was your childhood like before the Japanese invasion?
Idyllic. It was, servants, the trappings of middle-class life, because Dad had a good job. But that was just a dream. And I was 7 and a half, 8 when the Japanese landed.
Take us back to that night when the Japanese arrived, 1941, Christmas Eve. Now, I know it's tough for you to remember.
Not at all. No, it's quite clear in my mind what happened. I was very observant.
And that was very, very traumatic.
Yeah, and things like you don't just forget.
No. But do you want to go over it?
Well, it all started one day at lunch. Dad said, Britain's being bombed by the Germans and all that, and the Japanese have taken over China. They've conquered Shanghai, and they've taken Manchuria for natural resources for their armies and that, and ready to invade India and Australia. Can you believe that? The Japs. And of course, on their journeys, they ended up in Singapore, and the guns were set for the invasion to the sea, and they came behind the guns through the jungle. And 150,000 British troops surrendered within a day. And of course, with Singapore collapsing, the Japs just walked into Kuching.
So when they came into your home,
Yeah.
what exactly happened? You know, could you set the picture?
Yeah, well, it wasn't our home. Dad's boss said, I think you ought to take your family to my house, which is a stone building. You're safe from the bombs if anything happens. So we went there to hide. And this was the day before Christmas Eve. We went to bed, and 2:30 in the morning, crash, bang, wallop. Doors smashed down. About 15 soldiers, Japanese soldiers, with their flaps and bayonets on and their smelt of grease and what have you, barged in, shouted about. One went upstairs with a gun and got us all out downstairs, lined us up, searched us, found Mum's jewellery from her dad, valuable jewellery. They got that, and they started giggling, and they looked at my sister, who was 13, and they dragged her upstairs with Mum shouting at them. They told her to shut up, and we were all crying, and Doris was dragged up into the room upstairs, and there was a lot of screaming going on, and you know, it took about 3/4 an hour, half an hour upstairs, and they suddenly came down, and they all disappeared into the dark, the soldiers. The next morning we had to run. After Doris got well, she was shaking like a leaf. I mean, the trauma of it all.
Yeah.
And we ran to the convent thinking we'd get some help there. They did help because the Mother Superior was German, and we thought we'd be safe there because Germans and Japanese were close, you know. And after a few days, they told us we had to go because it wasn't safe for them or us to get involved. So, being dark-skinned, born because my grandmother was Portuguese, granddad's wife, I was born dark-skinned, and the rest of the family was white. So, I managed to get about and help the family and do things where the others couldn't. So, Mum gave me a note to go to a Chinese family, who one of the members worked for Dad, and said we were destitute and in trouble, can you put us up? And they gave us a little hut in the garden.
Was your father was he incarcerated at this time?
The morning that Doris was raped, they had found Dad at home. He'd come home for lunch with an English friend, and without his rifle, he was a volunteer. And a group of Japanese came to the garden, raised their rifles, according to what Dad said, raised their rifles at the window and said, "You English bastard, come out or we'll kill you."
Yeah.
So Dad thought it was funny.
In Japanese? Or?
In English.
In English?
Yeah. Somebody again must have told him, the two guys are in there, they're British.
Sure.
So Dad came out, hands up, went downstairs, and they butted him. Then they were taken in a Jap van to a centre to be interrogated. And from then on, it was 3 months torture chamber in a little room 4x4. After the torturing and all that, he was under force with the Postmaster General's permission. Somehow word got about to reorganise the wire station which Dad's had sabotaged before they landed, to get it going again for the Japs. So of course a great opportunity for Dad. He, under a revolver following him all the time, pretended to fiddle around and saying we need these parts and so forth. The Japs were ordering parts and all that. In the meantime, he was sending Morse code to the planes, Allied planes, telling what happened and passing the news to the POW camp. And Dad was rewarded the OSS, Order of the Tsar Sarawak, for that.
Tony, tell me about the story of you going to bring some food to your father.
Oh yes, it was a regular thing. I had this old jalopy of a bike that a friend gave me to help us out. Tyres had gone, so you cycle there on metal wheels.
Yeah.
And quite a long journey through St Thomas Road, uphill through the Chinese cemetery, and then machine gunning. You jump in a hole, And I never forget jumping in this hole and looked at the side of me. There's a sheared off coffin with a skeleton looking at me, Chinese cemetery. So I jumped out of that, got to the prison. Just the one occasion out of hundreds of visits there in the 3.5 years.
Mm.
And with my chronic malaria, my spleen sticking out, my ulcers, I still had to do it.
Mm.
Nobody could help us. And I was the only boy in the house. So I had all the problems on my shoulders at 9 years old, 10 years old. Got to the prison. I handed my cloth tied up plate to the sentry, Japanese sentry. And he took it and said, "Papa, where's?"
Mm.
Opened the knot. And there's only a plate of rice with a fried egg on top.
Sure.
That was luxury for Dad, because they were eating rats, and as they chewed the bones of the rats and threw it down, another prisoner would pick it up and suck it more and more.
Sure.
Awful. Anyway, he got his pencil out from behind his ear and checked the rice to see if there's any messages and things, stabbed the egg and started eating. And I shouted out in Malay, I said, "It's Papa's food."
Yeah.
In Japanese, tabero, food.
Sure.
He didn't like it. Of course he wouldn't. This skinny little fellow telling him, Japanese are so dangerous and cruel. And he slung the plate on the floor, and old Dad's rice went on the floor, and half the egg eaten by him, and grabbed his rifle and shoved it to me, and missed my rib cage because I had my arm to knock it off, push it away, and he did again, and I managed to. Of course, there's two big cuts here, and
Can I have a look at that?
that's one there.
So the bayonet went in there.
Yeah. Sliced me in there.
Christ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jumped on my bike and rolled down the hill, and I was just waiting for a shot because they think nothing of shooting anybody at the time. I thought, here we go, just wait for the bullet, As I went down further and further, thank God, got to the main road, and of course blood was pouring out, so I had to get on my bike, hold this gap, and hold the other one, and cycle home.
Tony, that's truly an amazing story. So I could just feel the fear and the dread of you possibly losing your life in that moment. But the thing that amazes me about you had this idyllic lifestyle. You were living on this island, sort of a paradise island, as a 9-year-old, and suddenly your whole world's turned upside down, and you had to find the courage and the will to survive. You virtually became a man overnight. You had this dream inside you. Can you show me exactly where Cochin is on the map?
Yes. Fortunately, I've got the map out here.
Okay.
There's the island of Borneo.
Yeah. So just there.
And the brown bit there, which is Sarawak.
Okay.
In the old days, it was Dutch Borneo and British North Borneo.
Okay, so Sarawak is in the north.
Yeah, Sarawak wasn't a colony. It was independent as a British protectorate. We had to come through there into Suez Canal, right through into England.
So this little boy from Sarawak, where did this love of music come about?
From the seriousness of life and the trauma, and always looking for happiness. And the only way I could find happiness was either playing guitar and singing and entertaining, where everybody's so nice to you. And it's so different to the serious work of an engineering apprenticeship, which is, to me, was boring because I've had all the trauma and all the seriousness of life. I wanted to break out into happiness.
Sure.
So music was what I went for.
So you're a foreigner in this new land.
I beg to differ there. If you come from the Commonwealth, you're not a foreigner because you're the Queen's subjects.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So did you feel like a foreigner, or did you feel you were wanted?
No, I didn't. I didn't feel I was a foreigner, but I did feel different because of my dark skin. And I felt the odd man out always,
Sure.
And but Britain was very good to me. I mean, the English people were lovely, so accommodating and so nice.
So tell me about Freddy and the Werewolves. Is it Freddy?
Well, that's funny, yeah. I had finished my apprenticeship, and I went back after the 2 years in the RAF National Service. Went back to work, day job, and out of the blue one night in the pub, someone asked me to join Derry Heart and Heartbeats, a group that was on the Ken Dodd show. So I joined, and it was a tour heading for the Palladium, but it didn't work out. The weather was good, and people weren't going to theatres. So I came out of that thinking what to do next. I've left my day job. The tour had folded up, and I thought, no, I'll form a group. I formed a group called, from my real name, Freddie Ware and the Werewolves.
Freddie Ware. And
I opened a club in Sidcup, big beat club, and packed them in.
Fantastic.
And went on from there, strength to strength, and ended up being we got a telegram from one of the ballrooms we were singing between Ronnie Keane and his orchestra, filling in the gaps, 20 minutes, 2 spots. Telegram came saying that would we go to the Midlands for an audition.
Sure.
And Reg Calvert was promoter of a sort of bandbox organisation in the Midlands, Southampton. And he saw me with my double bass. He says, pack it in after a few sessions. Pack it in, I'll make you a singer.
Okay.
And I only knew 5 songs.
Okay.
So they used to put me on, I'd do my 5 songs, and the group would take over. And the kids would say, well, Frederick, more. And then they go back. But I progressed from there. And I got ambitious, and we were in demand in the fleet of groups that he had.
Sure.
And I left, and the group that took my place were the Fortunes. And they had a hit.
Sure.
But I went to London and took a gamble, roughing it, and did an audition in the club. They wanted a bass player. So I went, and luckily the owner, which is the Mandrake Club, a jazz club, it's strict jazz. Errol Garner used to pop in there, and it was a jazz club as well. And they didn't know I'd been rock and roll, apart from looking, my double bass was painted white with a black line, and 2 other bass players were there auditioning.
Sure.
And because I sang a bit, the owner said, yeah, well, you can learn a lot here, son, he says, and become a resident part of the trio, the 2 guys. The pianist played for Shirley Bassey and people like that. The drummer was an EMI session man. Top boys. And lucky me, from rock and roll, a rough diamond, had this luck to join them, because I sang a bit and played double bass. And they played Oscar Peterson numbers, I just fell into it. It's lucky, really.
Tell me, how did you become Tony Rocco?
That's it. This residency in this club,
Yeah.
I stuck it out for 2.5 years. I thought, I'm not going to run around now.
Okay.
I'll stick it out. And I had a nice audience, always full up. The boss liked me. And one day somebody said they're holding auditions around the corner. So I went, did an audition, 2 numbers, came down the stand. And who should be in the audience whom I didn't know at the time, these names, you know, when you're struggling. Jeff Love, Norrie Paramore, Gerald Marks, managing editor of Disc magazine, and John Barry.
Wow. And
I said, thank you very much, mustache. They said, where are you working? I said, round the corner. Can we come along? So I dragged 5 high executives and signed him into the club. But Gerald Marks came up and gave me his card, and it said, managing editor of Disc magazine, Fleet Street. I thought, must be something in it, Fleet Street. So I went to bed. I hardly slept. In the morning, I shot down to Fleet Street and saw him. Knocked on the door. Ah, Freddie. He remembered my name, so it was something in it, I thought.
Yeah.
He chucked his pen on the table and he said, let's go for coffee. We had a coffee, then he says, I'm going to take you to see Vera Lynn. Vera Lynn was so hospitable, made us a cup of tea, and the husband, Harry. And we talked, and Gerald Marks, who was to be my manager eventually, he said, have a listen to this ditty Tony's written. Mind you, I was Freddie Way at the time.
Yeah.
Listen to this ditty that Freddie's written.
Sure.
She said, I like it.
This was...
And I'll publish it.
And this was Stalemate.
Yeah.
Can I sing it with you, Tony?
Go on then.
You ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm just waiting for a telephone call from my baby. Doody. I'm just waiting for my telephone call from my baby.
Stalemate. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ding, ding, goes telephone. I'm getting angry with my baby. Baby's getting angry to go with me. Stalemate. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ding, ding, goes telephone. I'm so alone when you're not here. Why don't you phone my baby? Yeah, I'm just waiting for a telephone call from the baby. Baby, just waiting for a telephone call from me. Stalemate. Yeah, 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 yeah. Goes telephone away to you. So long when you're not here. Why don't you phone my baby? Yeah, I'm just waiting for a telephone call from the baby. Baby, just waiting for a telephone call from me. Stalemate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bottle then published it on Aberback Music. And then she finally sold up, it went to Carlin Music. But anyway, that song was a hit in Europe, and it was number 1, I think, in Holland.
Yeah.
And I had lots of work, and from it, the money, I went to... I thought, after my old bike from the Japanese occupation, a rickety old bike with no tyres, I thought, I'm going to treat myself now. I think I've arrived, you know. So I went to Henley's in Piccadilly and looked at the Jags there, and the royalty money and the advance money. I said, I like that Cotswold Blue Jag, 2.4.
Tony, that's a really good write-up here.
Thank you, yes. Yeah. That's my second release, that was. And it should have zoomed into charts, but unfortunately the cover done from America also was a sleeper.
Okay.
So mine was a sleeper. But the third record was also by Leroy Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Country and Western rock number, great number. Sure. But again, at the last minute, he detracted and didn't allow anybody to do it.
Now, I want to take you back to Kuchin.
All right.
Do you remember just before the end of the war? Okay. Now, what was your feeling when you knew, just before the end of the war, that you knew that you were on the brink of probably losing your life?
Well, you know, as a young boy, you go with the flow, and all the dangers that you've been through, you just accept it. It's your prerogative to endure that. But you do worry about your mother and sisters, who are just sitting ducks, really. And that was the fear, that was the worry, not so much yourself, it's the family being wiped out by the Japs.
Sure. It is truly an amazing story, Tony, and you had to educate yourself.
I'm self-taught, really,
and
University
when
of Life.
When you think you didn't have that schooling, and you've gone on and written a hit record,
I'm amazed at myself.
No, it's great. It's a great story. It's a great story, and it's an inspiring story for everyone. So I will say I'll say to people that are watching in on Amazing TV, buy a copy of this book, because it will really give you an insight into what Tony went through and how he survived and how he went on to achieve some of the amazing things. Not only that, but he's a very beautiful human being. He's got a very compassion, amazing compassion and humanity about him.
You're embarrassing me now.
So, this is an amazing book, ladies and gentlemen. You can buy this on Amazon today. This is not QVC, as you can imagine. This is amazing TV. So this is Andy Nobbs saying goodbye, and thank you, Tony.
And not forgetting John Parker, who's helped with the editing of it all.
And to John Parker for writing, helping co-write this amazing book. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
But if you don't, please let me go. Torturing me.